Welcome to the Nice Guy Show. My name's Chuck Chapman. I'm here with my co-host, Faisal Cooker and Ari Graff. And we just spent, what, 6, 7 days together. Right now we're in Cancun, Mexico. We spent a few days at a conference where we led NCON 25, which is part of the Integration Nation, Dr. Robert Glover's online community. And we led, about 45 men through process of working through their nice guy behaviors. Got to hang out with Dr. Glover and hang out with each other. And it's actually the first time the three of us are meeting in person. We've worked together, I don't know, several years now. And I've met Faisal in person. I've never met Ari in person. But the three of us coming together in person, even though you've been seeing us, and I'm sure it looks like we're in the same room. We're not. We've been in different places around the world. And we wanted to shoot a nice guy episode just to kind of tell you about our experiences here in Cancun. Just give us a chance to kind of talk amongst ourselves. So with that, we would like to share maybe something you learned at the conference or something you learned about maybe one of us that you didn't know. Um,
Yeah, actually, what was the first impression
that's a
of
good,
each other?
yeah,
Because nowadays we see each other so much on Zoom,
yeah.
on social media, and it's meeting up in real life. I mean, for me, when I saw you first, when I first Ari as well, it felt like I've already known you,
Yeah.
and there wasn't a massive difference between that. So it kind of merged in well.
I mean, I don't know. I was so excited to meet you guys and meet all the other coaches and the members and Dr. Glover. I'd never met him. And there was still a little nervousness, like,
Mm.
what if these guys are dicks and
Right. So,
or like what if they get sick of me
yeah,
after actually spending time with me off of Zoom? Or
yeah.
what if I get sick of them? So it's kind of that worry and rumination was
And
going
did
through
you?
my head. Well, I'm not really into Chuck, but no, like I've been no really not surprised, but like I feel like this has just solidified our bond in the way that I was hoping.
Yeah.
And this is a unique thing for me. Like I've known Faisal since 2022 and Chuck, I think maybe since about 2022 also.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we're, it's about 2.5 years of knowing these guys and then really building our relationship and then doing the podcast with you. So just like really investing in our relationship to have never met is just a really unique thing. Um, and yeah, I mean, we've had a blast.
It makes a big difference as well when you meet in person.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was one of my highlight is, we connect with so many guys,
Mm.
and we have that routine of connecting on Zoom. We have calls, but a meet in person, there are so many things that I think you get from it that you can never get from Zoom. The presence of each other, the energy of each other, the camaraderie, the fun, the banter. There's a lot more you can play with, and there's a lot more you can enjoy as well. And that to me has been priceless. And it's just building friendships and connections, not just over virtual ones, but this is right. It feels real.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a similar experience. I mean, I feel like I've met you in person before and
Yeah.
we've hung out together, so it wasn't as much of a new thing. But Ari was, uh, it really didn't feel like there was much of a transition from, seeing you on this little tiny screen, you know, a few hours each week to seeing you in person. Um, but I do feel more connected with you guys and spent some time together. So that's been amazing.
Yeah, sharing meals,
Hmm.
going out for walks, hanging out on the beach.
Chasing women.
I hope you didn't do that. Yeah, I see your face.
Finally getting to see Faisal in action with
Yeah,
women.
yeah. And
I was sensible.
He's amazing. So seriously, like just a plug for Faisal here. Like if you want uh to learn how to have more charisma, how to talk to women, he's the master.
It was good. I mean, I was fortunate to be in situations where I could demonstrate that, and it's just everything aligned well. I remember that night in the hotel bar, or just before, I think just after dinner or something, and we met this girl. One of the guys met this girl, and it was just nice. It was nice to have that banter, the just putting into practice what we've been learning, what we've been taught, and it was great just to get that real life calibration, which you can never ever get just being on a Zoom call.
But also the importance, I think, of the Zoom calls and the meetings, like that kind of sets the tone. But then when you actually get together,
Yeah,
it's like you're just like, okay, it's one more level.
it was a great foundation.
Yeah.
So you had the foundation, and then now we just added the sprinkle a lot of more stuff onto it. So it's a great foundation because had we just arrived without those connections, it would have taken a lot longer.
Mm.
So now, because we all knew each other, we knew the other guys in the group, so there was already that there was already some sort of bond and connection,
Yeah.
and I loved some of the um, for me some of the highlights were. So let's go through some of the highlights actually.
Yeah.
One of the highlights I loved was just watching each other at work and learning from that. And one of the things we were talking about today was I loved some of the courage and strength that was I witnessed, and that kind of, like for example, there was a moment where um, I love Chuck's courage. So when your courage showed up, and there was a moment when we were one of the participants, he was speaking, sharing something, and then I remember Chuck saying,
Yeah, he was like the first guy that shared.
"Shares, yeah," and he said that should be standing up, and I said, "Yeah," and then you just made it very clear, "Hey, please can you stand up?" Now, might not sound like a big deal, but it takes a lot of courage to be able to do that in a room because again, there's a lot of shame. Should I be doing it? Should I be not? There's a lot of wrong stuff like that. So just seeing somebody else be courageous gave me the energetic courage to be okay. I can start accessing that courage myself. And there was other things as well, wasn't there? There was another part.
Yeah, that was several times. But I think it goes back to like the leadership piece of taking the lead and setting the tone. I just recognize if this guy's sitting down talking, that everyone, the next guy's going to sit down, and the next guy's going to sit down. And I wanted them both to be out of their comfort zone and sort of stand up and speak into the microphone, but also so we could all see and hear them more clearly. So I think that just kind of set a precedence,
Yeah.
set the tone and the precedence for the rest of the guys who are sharing.
You guys also, well, I give you props. The two of you worked with Dr. Glover to really create the retreat, and you put in so much attention to detail, and that's part of how it went so smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
And as someone who led some activities on the retreat but didn't organize it, I felt how smooth it was, and that just made it so much more enjoyable experience. Um, but it was everything just like from how the conference room was arranged with the chairs and how people entered the room, and how people even were asked to organize their belongings so to keep the room neat. Yeah, so there was a lot of attention to creating a space where people could pay attention and grow. So I want to give you props for that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It just demonstrates how much energy and effort leadership takes because leadership requires those nuances
Mhm.
and just to be on top of it. And, when we get into relationships, it's easy to get back into the pattern of being lazy and just letting those go. And that's what the feminine then really gets frustrated with, because it's chaotic. It's like there's so many little things that hadn't been. If those small things were not paid attention to, then the whole, I guess, the flavor of the conference would have been not the same. And I think that's the same thing in relationships. When guys don't pay attention to leading to some of the nuances, then the flavor of the relationship then starts suffering.
Yeah, in fact, I teach this a lot in the work that I do with guys that are in relationships. That when you walk into a room, you get a feeling like when you first walk into your hotel room and it's nice and clean, and you just get this feeling of serenity and peace. And the same thing with the conference. You don't notice things until they're chaotic.
What you mean, like
Ari's underwear
suitcase,
over
which is
there, but yeah,
right for the
but
underpants.
in the pants.
Who wears that?
But I always teach guys like for your master bedroom, for those of you who are in a relationship, and even not, like your master bedroom should be a sanctuary. So like if you bring a girl home or something, you don't want to bring her back to piles of clothing on the floor.
All right, guys, I hear you loud and clear.
And make your bed.
Make your bed. Make your bed.
That bed looks amazing.
It does. It's
It's the only thing in the room.
Because
yeah,
I didn't make it.
it's like pants there.
Watermelons. Yeah. Well, what's something that like maybe from the content that we shared that you guys are gonna take away?
Well, so I was sharing this with my men's group. I had a call after all the conference, and I said I want to recap some of the things I learned. So one of the things that really hit hard was watching. So some of the coaches were on stage, and the audience was asking them a question. And one of the guys asked a really good question. He said, "Well, how long does it take? How long has it been since your divorce or your adversity or your breakup or something challenging in life?" And it's very easy to think, oh, if I do a couple of things, maybe a little bit of retreat, maybe this and that, I'll be okay. But when the coaches answered the question, it was actually, this has taken 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And that's when I noticed him going, wow, because it's an easy expectation. I just want the magic bullet, the one thing, and I'm okay, I'm fixed. There was this realizing that all the coaches, they're still doing their work. It's not a quick win. You've got to be patient with it, and you will need to not just do one thing, but you need to accumulate, compound everything, and still a constant work in progress. And it just helped the guys to become more patient and understanding of it.
Yeah, I think it's having a growth mindset and adopting an attitude of lifelong learning and lifelong work on yourself, that it never ends. Um, Regardless if you're a coach. I mean, for me, like as a coach, I got to do some new lead some things that I had never done before at the conference. In addition to leading a breakout, which I did on Dirty Talk, which is
Mm.
something that I like, but is
I have a whole episode on that.
I've never given
Yeah.
a talk on that, and I talked about how it can help men let go of shame, be more authentic, be more courageous in their sex life, be more vulnerable. So that was something new that I did, and then I got to co-lead a workout in the morning on the beach, which was just fantastic, and incorporating different like polarity concepts and just having fun with the men. I created a workbook for the conference. So these are things that are tapping into my strengths, and so that was part of what I got out of the conference, is just new opportunities to lead.
Oh, you took any insights or realize, or even observations of the participants? You observed anything that you're thinking, oh, it's really important that the guys understand this and reinforce a message like,
Yeah.
time is one. Anything else?
Well, I think one of the things that kind of occurred to me was similar to this on like, we've been doing this for years, you know, and a lot of the guys that were there, this is like their first exposure to any kind of men's work, a men's conference, anything like that. And so oftentimes, even as speakers, we were, maybe we were talking about like polarity or something like that, and half the guys there didn't even have a clue of what it meant about polarity. But when you teach it so often, you forget that other people don't necessarily know what you're talking about. And I really saw it in one of the exercises you gave, where you had us walk around the room. Faisal had us walk around the room as if we were James Bond, introducing ourselves to kind of work on the charisma. And several of the participants, you could just tell how uncomfortable they were making eye contact. Just
Yeah.
making eye contact was
Yeah.
like a big edge for them. And I have to continuously remind myself, like, okay, these guys are still at a different level. I can't, speak over. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. Is just having more of an understanding of where these guys are coming from, and where probably a lot of even you who are watching this on YouTube, I'm sure we say things all the time that it's like, what is that? What's polarity? Or
It's
what's
the,
a nice guy? Or what, you know,
it's a jargon, isn't it?
it's the jargon.
It's a psychological effect of the curse of knowledge.
Yes, yeah.
Uh, because we do it all the time, we're talking about polarity, we have all the context in
Right.
place of understanding. And for some of the guys, so it was, I guess, a self-realization for us to step back and say, okay, go back. Because I remember eye contact.
Yeah.
When I first started this journey years ago,
Yeah.
I was very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I was very uncomfortable even giving other men a hug.
Mm.
There was a lot of hugging this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just, I remember when I started it, one of the coaches I was working with, and he would properly hug me.
Mhm,
And I'd be
mhm,
like
mhm.
tapping him, trying to get rid of that energy. I'm like being,
Right.
and he's like, what's wrong?
We didn't do a hug workshop.
We should have done hug work.
It's all. It was one big workshop.
Yeah, but it was just
To hold that.
discomfort,
Yeah.
and then
Oh, yeah.
and then
Mhm.
work through that emotion, because it was really awkward. I mean, when I was growing up, I didn't have a lot of hugs. I was, my parents weren't very huggy. I'm sure probably when I was a baby or something, but I don't remember a lot of hugs. Now, with my kids, they're like 17, 16. I still hug them.
Yeah.
And they still come in my, I'm like, come in my bed. We're going to do a box breathing or something, right? Or read a book, and I'm hugging them. I still kiss them.
Yeah,
I still
absolutely.
I still kiss them because I know that I didn't get that as a child, but
Mhm.
I want to make sure that they're constantly hugged, they're constantly kissed, and I just peck them on their forehead or something like that. And they're like, Dad, but they're like, yeah, we do like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of the guys probably never experienced or had that
Mhm.
bonding or love or care. And if they did, they don't know what to do with it.
That's such a great point. Yeah. I think one of the other things we've been talking about is most people have been to some kind of conference or convention where it was all just lecture.
Mm.
And it's a lot of information, and you're hitting a wall maybe by the end of the morning in terms of how much you can absorb and how much more you can absorb. So I think a lot of this weekend was different practices and exercises. So we tried to make it experiential uh, during these presentations. And I think the men really got more out of it because of that. That was a take home for me, that has to be incorporated all the time. Is the
Yeah.
it's the audience participation. It's doing things like visualizations, meditations, and even just being up out of your chair and doing things like looking people in the eye. So that was a really memorable part of the conference for me. Um, and then also things like the Friday and Saturday night, we took men out in into the world, of Playa del Carmen, to be social animals. as Dr. Glover calls it. And yeah, getting to banter with women or just, people in general, men and women, in bars or just on the street, clubs. It's just a lot of fun, but we're able to put into practice a lot of these concepts we're always talking about in terms of social skills. So that, I mean, that was a highlight for me.
Hmm. It was social skills, but it was also what I noticed was, I've had that struggle too. It was like, how do we connect more?
Mm.
Like, you work a lot with connection and in relationships as well. It's like, how do we build more connection? How do we get, one of the things I realized and I noticed was the guys who were struggling to attract women, be with women, usually the underlying thing that they had was a common thing that they had was, I said, how interested are you in other people?
Hmm.
And how interested are you in women and other people? And they're like,
Yeah.
not very much.
Yeah.
I'm like, then how are you going to build a connection?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said, this is a perfect environment to be with other men, get interested in them, ask questions, get curious, because how you show up with other people is going to be transferred to the women that you want to meet, the women you want to connect with. So it was a great, like you said, a very experiential getting out there and just really building on I think that another great thing was getting live feedback.
Mm. Yeah, just getting that kind of immediate feedback from people.
Because with this spot, there's a few coaches there, and they were able to get some feedback. I remember when we went out to some bars, and then I was able to give some feedback to some of the guys, just to like some feedback on, hey, try this, build more connection, or do this. And some of the guys started putting it into practice, and they got some good results for it. And my favorite one for me was when I took the guys, right? These are nice guys. They're successful in what they do, but they don't really put a lot of effort into how they show up. So I took them shopping.
Yeah.
Right? I took the guys, I'm like, okay, I need you to stop wearing what you're wearing because they were dressed like boys, not men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to women, that nuance makes a huge difference. Is I think one of the realizations that we were talking about it, was I don't want to teach a woman how to be a woman and how to dress like a woman. And she doesn't want to teach a man how to be a man and then dress like a man.
Hmm. That's right.
So when I took the guys out, it was so much fun. And what I learned was, one, next time I'm going to do it actually as a proper
Yeah.
part of the training course, because it wasn't about the clothes. It was about the resistance,
Yeah.
letting go, scarcity mindset.
Mm.
Well, I've always worn those clothes. I've always done something like that. I've always had a mindset in a certain way. So it's putting them out of them, getting them out of their mindset. And then, sometimes guys can, those nice guys can be quite cheap as fuck and they don't want to spend any money on themselves.
Yeah.
And one of the realizations was, Dr. Glover said, men, especially like people pleasers will spend a lot of money on their partner,
Yeah.
a lot of money on their kids, on their family, but not on themselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that boils down to a lot of resentment. Have you guys ever done that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, never. Yeah.
Bought holidays,
Yeah.
bought gifts.
Yeah. Well, I think also just getting them to kind of lean into the tension, the discomfort of like, oh, this feels different on my body than like the hoodie that I'm used to wearing or the jeans that I'm used to wearing, and even kind of leaning into that tension. And there was one of the participants, we were having lunch and we saw him, walking down the street, and he looked so much better. I mean, he just looked, his head was taller. He was walking
Yes.
more confident,
Yeah.
and he didn't know we were watching him. Um, but we could saw him from the restaurant. And it was like, oh, there he goes. Look at him. And we were all commenting about just
Yeah.
how he was carrying himself differently.
I can't wait for him
Yeah.
to go back, and his wife's going to see that.
Yeah.
His wife's going to see what a man, what a transformation.
Yeah.
Like she'll feel like this
Yeah.
man standing in front of me, not a boy,
Mm-hmm.
dressed in a certain way, because It all signals, they're all clues, aren't they?
I think it's helpful for married men to spend time around single men and single men to be around married men
Yeah.
too.
In what way?
Like I guess
What was your
one
experience?
thing is like some of the married men at the conference, ended up coming out uh, in the evenings into the town and into the bars and hanging out with the single guys, even if they're not out to hit on women.
Mm-hmm.
But some of them did talk to women. I think they were um, getting experiences being playful, taking risks,
Mm-hmm.
um, being social.
Yeah. Well, and maybe also getting like a different response than they might get from someone they've been married to for years.
That's right. Yes.
And realizing, oh, this is, maybe things are stale in my marriage for a reason because I haven't been bringing some of this confidence, haven't been doing the banter, haven't been doing the playfulness, and they could take that experience and bring it home with them to their wives. I think that,
Yeah. And they were all very respectful.
yeah,
They weren't trying to hit on the girls.
yeah, I
They
know,
were, they were, they were, they were just having a great
yeah,
conversation with everybody.
yeah,
I guess I saw some of the guys, they were just really conversing, and they saw us conversing, and they were like, okay, let's just converse with
yeah,
everyone. And they're just getting them out of their usual stuff that they do.
yeah. Well, what else did we learn?
Awkward silences.
Awkward silences, holding space during the awkward silence.
Yeah, yeah, because sometimes there can be an awkward silence, and a lot of the guys feel like, okay, we need to fill that up, and it's like I always need to be the one
Mm-hmm.
to fill that up. So there's a lot of self-worth around them. And another thing, which was quite powerful, especially for people pleasers, codependent individuals, is you don't always have to have an opinion, as the Stoics
Mm-hmm.
say. So not everything needs an answer. Not everything needs to be fixed. Not everything needs to be handled, because there are a lot of things that people will say that your brain will like, okay, I need to respond to this. I need to sort this out. Especially when you're with someone who's very feminine, they'll say 1,000 things, and the men's logical brain is like, I need to work on every single one.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can just let them pass, which is the same. I love Napoleon Hill, Napoleon Bonaparte. So one of the things, he had a rule. So he used to get a mail. He'd receive the mail, and he would tell his secretary, he'd tell him, don't open it for a few weeks. It was a few weeks or months, whatever it was. And what he realized was, after he'd opened it up for a few weeks, and then he realized that the problems that the letters had, 90% of them had gone away.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we keep getting those information, we have a knee-jerk reaction to them.
Right.
It's to stop that knee-jerk reaction. It's to get away from that constant stimuli and then reacting to it. To actually, that
Yeah, no,
most of them is not an emergency.
yeah. We're just leaning into the discomfort of the awkward silence.
Banter was a good thing. We had so much banter. I mean, like Ari's jokes.
Ari with the dick jokes, the poop jokes. So
There's so many jokes that we can't even mention.
some
Two best step. But I like that, because that's how guys bond.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Piss them off.
Yeah.
Polarizing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's our dirty talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. How was it for you meeting Robert Glover? Because you hadn't met him before.
It was he was kind of what I expected.
Yeah.
I guess I've interacted with him plenty on different calls. I wasn't expecting the black toenails,
Hmm.
black painted toenails.
Yeah.
But he really had a lot of charisma in person, which I was expecting. Um, yeah, I mean, I love his attention to all the details too, you know, and the energy he brings. Um, so yeah, I mean, I just feel like I've solidified so many relationships with other coaches, with members.
I think the other thing we took from it was just kind of the inspiration for both like our own individual work as coaches, but also like this podcast talking about like where do we want this to go? Um, and I think one of the things we talked about was like having our own retreat at some point where, having guys come and us be the ones leading it. Having maybe having 10, 15 guys or something like that, all inclusive resort where we have a lot of fun, where we also, give information and answer questions, but really have a time to bond as men, as well as just learn what it's like to be, in a group of guys having a good time.
It's one of the things I learned from Tony Robbins. He said if you want to really grow, if you want to have growth in your life, one of the things you need to have is proximity,
Mm-hmm.
being around
Right.
in the right place, the right environment, the right people, the
Right.
right opportunities. So proximity
Right.
is important. He said one of the other things that you need to have is immersion, to really immerse yourself in that environment, because you will, like, even being on here, I felt like I've grown unconsciously, not just cognitively, but emotionally. Like my body's grown and learned some things from it, and not just learning things from it, but also solidify them and accelerate some of the growth aspect.
You're talking about on the podcast by here.
Being here, being
Yeah.
in the
Proximity with each other.
proximity with each other, being immersed
Yeah.
in doing the exercises, getting feedback, making some mistakes, correcting them, course correction. But it wasn't just because you'll be on the podcast for 25 minutes or
Yeah.
you'll be on a Zoom call for 1 hour. These were long days.
Yeah.
And these are long days to fine tune, evolve, develop, immerse, reflect on, come back. And then you combine that with good music, fun, good food, adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. And that's, I believe a lot of men are missing adventure, fun, camaraderie,
Yes.
banter. Because to me, I've done retreats before and I've been to seminars before. Very data driven,
Mm-hmm.
very serious. And to me, when you're having fun, I think you learn 10.
Yeah. Have fun, experience, immerse. Yeah. Yeah. Well, guys, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's time to wrap it up.